Hi guys, Aaron Dorr here with Iowa Gun Owners. With the June 7 primary almost here, we're getting a lot of questions from gun owners and from our members in Southeast Iowa about House District number 87. Who is the pro-gun champion in this contested Republican Party primary between Representative Jeff Shipley and Joe Mitchel? We're discussing the Southeast Iowa area. It's all of Van Buren County, portions of Jefferson, portions of Henry, covers towns like Keosauqua, Mount Pleasant, Fairfield, and a bunch of smaller towns in that vicinity. And the question we're getting from gun owners is always not who's pro-gun, because this is Iowa in an election year, in a Republican Party primary. So everybody's pro-gun right now, right? That's the problem. We can't tell sometimes, who is pro-gun when it's easy and who is pro-gun when it's hard. And so what you're asking IGO is, who is the pro-gun champion who will fight for our gun rights? And if there's ever a time that we needed to have fighters for our gun rights, it's right now. You're all watching what's playing out right now in Washington, D.C. as the radical left, aided by moderate Republicans on the right, are working overtime to crush our Second Amendment rights in the wake of these two mass shootings. We have Republicans aiding the left in doing this, like John Cornyn from Texas, Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, Mitt Romney from Utah. And so we know at the federal level, we know in D.C. that party labels don't always count for much when it comes to our gun rights when it's hard. That's the question you're asking us is, in this race, with Jeff Shipley and Joe Mitchel, again, who's going to back our freedom when it's hard? And we have information for you to that end. Now, IGO has worked very hard to survey all the candidates in this race and other races in this primary cycle. As you guys know, we issue a candidate survey, and we ask the candidates, where do you stand on the following top 10 issues of the day when it comes to our gun rights? Now, do some candidates not keep their word and lie after they give us a survey? Yeah, that's happened before. That's a given. But what we know after a lot of years in doing this is that when a candidate won't do a survey at all, that's a very bad sign. That means that candidate may have a plan to betray gun owners that don't want to get caught by breaking a written promise. So we do a very thorough job in surveying these candidates, and as a result, I can say that Jeff Shipley has surveyed 100% pro-gun with Iowa gun owners. And what that means to IGO is not just he said, hey, I'm pro-gun, I'll vote pro-gun. To be a 100% survey respondent means that Shipley has promised to lead the fight for gun rights by pledging to sponsor pro-gun bills. We have lots of people here in Des Moines who are pro-gun. We have very few who will lead that charge and fight for gun rights by sponsoring pro-gun bills. Shipley has promised to do that. Now, promises aren't worth a whole lot in politics during an election season. But when it comes to Shipley, his survey is backed up by his actions. He's been in office for years now, and I'm proud to announce that Jeff Shipley was the lead sponsor on constitutional carry law, the bill that finally passed last year after a long fight here in Des Moines. Shipley was the one who was sponsoring that bill, pushing that bill, driving that bill forward until we finally saw a final vote on that in the 2021 session. They used different language in the end, but it was Shipley's efforts to fight, to push his caucus that finally made Iowa a constitutional carry state last year. This year, Jeff is the lead sponsor on the Second Amendment Preservation Act. We call it SAPA. Now, as you guys know, the problem we have right now in D.C. is that Joe Biden's using executive orders to mandate gun control by fiat. And Biden's handlers are hoping they can use Iowa cops, Iowa troopers, Iowa deputies, Iowa law enforcement agencies to enforce this gun control agenda by fiat. Now, what SAPA law says is that this is Iowa. We have our own constitution, we have our own rules, we have our own idea of what freedom is, and we're not going to let our resources, our cops, our taxpayer money go to aid an all-powerful, tyrannical federal government in backing gun control. By passing SAPA, we can shut down his agenda, Biden's agenda here in Iowa, because he'll simply not have the manpower to do it. Jeff Shipley was the only person who would sponsor SAPA in Des Moines this year, House File 2303, but he didn't just sponsor it. Some people will sponsor a bill just to get the kudos, just to get the praise, and then they'll move on and forget about it. Shipley worked his tail off with IGO members to get co-sponsors on this bill. 19 other lawmakers backed Shipley's SEPA legislation when it was filed earlier this session. Now, Republican leaders in Des Moines, they killed that bill. Some of the same people who are endorsing against Jeff Shipley were the ones who killed that bill. This is what I mean, though, when I say the question is always who will actually do the hard work and fight for our gun rights. And when it comes to constitutional carry and SEPA, Shipley's actions match the words that he's given us in his candidate survey. That also means he's 100% opposed to gun-free zones, opposed to AR-15 bans, opposed to raising the age on when people in Iowa can buy a firearm. All the questions we asked him, Shipley is 100% pro-gun. Now, when it comes to Joe Mitchel, though, we have a lot more questions than we have facts to give you, because Joe Mitchel has consistently refused to fill out his IGO gun rights candidate questionnaire. So we don't know where Joe Mitchel stands on all these issues of the day. Now, again, it's a primary, so if you ask him, he'll say, oh yeah, I'm pro-gun. Well, that's fine. I mean, anybody can say it. Everybody does say it. The question is, why won't Joe Mitchel sign his IGO candidate survey and put his views on our Second Amendment in writing? Why won't he simply answer a 10-question survey and say, this is my word, this is my promise, this is my pledge, this is how I'm going to vote on these bills if elected? And again, we don't just want people who will vote pro-gun. We want people who will lead that fight and champion pro-gun bills. And Joe Mitchel has refused to say if he would sponsor SEPA legislation. He's refused to say if he would sponsor bills to repeal Iowa's deadly gun-free zones. We don't know where he stands on other issues like AR-15 bans, 30-round magazine bans, raising the age on gun owners. We don't know because Joe Mitchel will not complete his candidate questionnaire. And again, after 6 election cycles now here in Iowa, IGO knows very well when candidates will not survey, it's often a very ominous sign that they intend to be part of that rhino herd that is deeply entrenched in elements of both the Republican Senate and Republican House caucuses here in Des Moines. So this is a very big concern to gun owners. And so if you're a voter in this district, again, primary is on Tuesday. It's all of Van Buren and portions of Jefferson and Henry counties. If you see Jeff Shipley in the next couple of days, be sure and thank him for surveying 100% pro-gun, and thank him, more importantly, for leading the fight for our gun rights when it comes to constitutional carry and SEPA. And if you see Joe Mitchel, be sure and ask him, why won't you survey with Iowa gun owners? Why won't you put your views for the Second Amendment on paper? Yeah, we get it. It's a primary. You're going to say you're pro-gun. Got it. But why won't you go the next step and put your views in writing so we can hold you accountable if you betray us sometime down the road? That's the question to ask Joe Mitchel. Guys, do me a favor. Share our video far and wide. Primaries coming fast. And join our fight for freedom today at www.joinigo.com.